Viewing audience and the citizens here to the Austin City Council Candidate Forum sponsored by the City of Austin Ethics Review Commission. I'm Frances McIntyre, President of the Austin League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters will be moderating this forum for candidates to the Austin City Council Place 1, 3, and 4, and we have the candidates for Place 4 with us right now. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization with both men and women members that promotes the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League does not support or oppose candidates or parties. The League members who are helping tonight are Lisa Harris, Stuart Snyder, Judy Clack, Ann Clark, Margaret Orange, and Gwen Santiago. This forum is being televised by Channel 6 and will be repeated many times before the election. Channel 6 is to be commended for providing information for the public and exposure for all the candidates. The format tonight will be as follows. Since there are two candidates here for Place 4, we will go to 1.5 minutes for the opening statements, 1.5 minutes for the closing statements, and 1.5 minutes for each of the questions. Our timekeeper will hold up cards denoting the time that you have left, and all the questions originated from the League and are unknown to the candidates. Before we begin, let me state that the views expressed here are those of the candidates and not the sponsor, the Ethics Review Commission, or the moderator, the Austin League.
I gotta put that in there.
According to the guidelines of the League of Women Voters, there must be no applause or demonstrations of support or opposition from visitors to this room. Candidates are asked to refrain from any personal attacks of opponents. So we are ready to hear from the candidates for Place 4, and we'll begin with the 1.5 minute opening statements with Laura Morrison.
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting us here tonight. I'm Councilmember Laura Morrison, running for a second term. I came to the City Council as a community advocate with a strong background in engineering and then also in public health, and I've worked very hard to serve as the public voice at City Hall. I base the work that I do on the council on three fundamental principles. The first is that all of my initiatives and positions that I take are based on an assessment of true benefit to the community and protecting Austin's families' quality of life. Second, I believe that we need to balance fiscal responsibility with our social responsibility, and I'm an involved and careful steward of our city's budget. And then third, all of our work needs to be transparent, accountable, with authentic public participation, because I firmly believe, and I have seen over and over again, that we achieve better outcomes when the public is involved in the decision-making and we have all stakeholders at the table. So as Austin moves into the future, ensuring that we have a city that is vibrant, where our families are healthy and able to thrive, is my goal and what brought me to City Council in the first place, and why I'm asking for a vote, for your vote, for a second term. So I look forward to our discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you again for sticking around. I know some of y'all probably had things to do, so I appreciate that. My name is Eric Rangel. I'm running for Austin City Council Place 4. I was born here in Austin at St. David's Hospital, grew up in Lockhart, Texas, and graduated from Texas State University. From there, I moved to Austin, where I wanted to get more involved in my community, so I decided to start volunteering, and I volunteer with Dell's Children's Hospital, Habitat for Humanity, and the youth group at my church. But I wanted to get more involved in my community, and so since my dad was the first Hispanic city councilman of Lockhart, my mom was tremendously active through many political organizations, and then my sister is now sitting as her third term as Caldwell County Treasurer. Politics just seemed to be a natural transition for me to get more involved in the community. You know, I'm running because I really care about Austin. I'm not running to pad my political resume of one day's hopes of becoming the political elite, or because if elected, it'll be the culmination of an already successful career. No, I really care about Austin, and I really feel that I can bring some positive changes to the community. So I look forward to tonight and answer on everything you have. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel, Austin currently has 6 council members and a mayor elected at large in the citywide election. What council configuration is best for Austin and why?
I think like most things, we need to start small and then move organically as it fits the needs of the city. I think too much change at one time is a bad thing. So for me, the one thing I would like to look at with a city council when it comes to single member districts, which I'm in favor of, is having 6 council members right now, 1 at-large mayor. 5, 6 years from now, we kind of move from there and see if it's fitting the needs of the city and seeing if everybody is being represented. Again, I think too much change is a bad thing. So for me, we start now what we have and then move from there. And then again, it grows organically to the fits the needs and the wants of the citizens of Austin.
Councilwoman Morrison.
The whole issue of districts and council accountability is something that I started working on and looking at and analyzing with a community group before I was on council. And there I really came to terms with the idea that a system that includes districts as well as some at-large positions was going to provide the city with better leadership and governance because of the accountability, because of the ability to have more opportunities for candidates to run grassroots campaigns. And we're getting to be a very large city. So the question then becomes how many districts and how many at large. And the mayor, of course, has proposed 6 districts and 3 at large. I don't know that that's the right number. The key element here is to ensure that we have enough districts so that we pass muster with the Voting Rights Act. We need to ensure that we have a opportunity district for the African American group of Austinites. And it's not clear to me that 6 will be an adequate number. So I look forward to a vibrant public discussion about that. There will have to be a lot of analysis with our demographer and other folks that are expert in the field and a lot of public discussion.
Councilmember Morrison, how would you define affordable housing and how would you create more affordable housing in Austin?
Okay, well, that's a big question. Affordability can be defined anywhere from folks that have 0 income and the housing that they can afford, all the way up to, we often talk about folks that are just getting into home ownership and making sure that people that make, say, 120% of the median income that they're able to enter into home ownership. So we just have to be clear that we need to address the whole spectrum of affordability. We need to be able to serve the most needy. And in fact, a recent housing study showed that the biggest lack of affordable housing that we have in this city is for folks that are make 30% of the median income and below. We're losing that housing stock, so preserving that housing stock is an important element of it. Our GO bonds is are a very important element, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have Austinites approved more general obligation bonds for that in the future. And there was one more thing that I was going to say, which just slipped my mind, because it's a whole toolbox that we have to go after. Oh, I know. One of the very important things the city has supported recently is the rehab coalition that's going in and really helping folks that are low income bring their houses up to par and adding energy efficiency and all. So that's helping people stay in their homes is another essential element.
Thank you. Mr. Rangel?
For me, affordable housing defines as individuals who make a living off minimum wage and are able to afford a place to live. And that's where where I think of affordable housing. And working for Habitat for Humanity, or at least volunteering for them, you come really close with individuals who fit under this, this financial restrictions that most of us don't. So with me, it's definitely a push and definitely something that we need to face as a city, and I would look, heavily on strong as far as looking more into affordable housing. I think the problem with affordable housing in Austin is that we burden East Side with it. We definitely need to make sure that all parts of Austin are dealing with affordable housing, and that all parts of Austin are, in a sense, bearing the burden that East Austin gets too often faces. So with me, those are things that I would like to tackle in the sense of making sure that it's equally dispersed all across town, not just East Austin. Actually, what I would like to propose is that actually there's a freeze on East Austin and affordable housing, just so that, again, it doesn't bear the grunt of the city council burdening them year after year with affordable housing. So again, it's definitely a need of the city. It's definitely something we got to make sure that we're ahead of and make sure that we're involved in heavily with.
Mr. Rangel, one of the most critical problems facing Austin is traffic congestion. How can the city improve the traffic flow?
Man, a minute and a half. Okay. So traffic, I think, transportation is obviously a big issue for everyone and every year. The problem is that when it comes to transportation, the city needs to start playing chess and stop playing checkers. We need to look 4, 5, 10 years down the line when it comes to transportation, because that's the only way we're going to solve this problem. The truth is that we need to start downtown. The truth is we need to start at the urban core. 38th to Ben White, Mopac 35, start there with an urban rail. I'm a huge fan of urban rail. When I traveled all across this great country, when I traveled Europe, it was just inevitable that the evolution of a city was to go that step. And we need to be 4 or 5 steps ahead of that, because if not, years from now, we're going to bear the grunt of that financially. So we need to make sure that we lay a foundation for that. Eventually, it will ease the congestion for the outgrown areas, because now when you start downtown and you work your way out organically, now it fits the needs of the city. And so wherever there's more dense, more people, then it'll help out with congestion. One thing I would also like to look into is maybe looking at how the city can help truck drivers use the toll roads. A lot of truck drivers that I talked to said they would use the toll roads if it was cheaper for them. They pay, I think, $1, maybe $1 per axle. Maybe the city help them out with 50 cents per axle. These sort of things we can solve. We can help out with. We just got to look at a more broader scope and look at more of seeing and make sure that the city is looking at everything with transportation.
Thank you. Councilwoman Morrison.
Well, there's no doubt that we have transportation issues in this town and that they're affecting the quality of life of our Austin families. And I think we need to really look at this on several levels. First, we need to look at near-term congestion relief, and our mobility bond from last November helped us out with that. For instance, what we would call in the engineering world a quick and dirty solution to the why. It's not going to be a long-term solution, but it's going to help save thousands of people's hours for the next 10 years. Secondly, we need a full strategic mobility plan, which we are working on. I hope that rail becomes a part of that if we get the appropriate plan in place. But everybody needs to see what our regional solution is, especially within Travis County and the city of Austin, so that we can all be part of the solution and understand that the solution for this area of town will also be coming. And then I think that the city needs to be smart about the way we plan for growth and development. If people are able to live near where they work and where they go to school, they don't have to be on the road so much, and their vehicle miles traveled goes down, because it's really about how many miles people have to be on the road, not so much about traffic congestion, essentially, that we want to solve. So I think that if we go at it from 3 different perspectives like that, we can make some differences for the future.
Councilmember Morrison, what assistance, if any, should the city give to Austin schools?
It's interesting. The City Council has passed a resolution, and we're asking the city manager to work with the superintendent to look at various arenas there. And I think that there's going to be some good ideas where we can share facilities. There might be some funds that can be shared. For instance, we get something called PEG funds because we are the Time Warner is a franchisee. We might be able to share some of those funds. But really, over the past 3 years, I think some very important work that's gone on the council that this is really going to just be layered on top of is the elected officials from the school district, the county, and the city council, of which I was one, have been working together and really put some important programs in place that are already helping to leverage our resources. For example, it was based on the work in our committee that we developed a program called Connecting the Dots, so that now we have a software system in place so that the folks that are serving the kids in the schools can see what other services they're receiving or their families are receiving from the city and the county. And that way we'll be able to leverage our resources. If there's a gap in the service, if there's an overlap and a redundancy, we'll be able to use our resources better. There's a whole litany of things that we have done and that we can do, and I think that the relationship that we've built with the school district and the county commissioners over the past 3 years is really helping to form a foundation of making some progress.
Thank you. Mr. Rangel?
The sad reality of the situation is that the city council doesn't really have too much directly with the schools and what they can and cannot do. That's a sad reality. But again, like she said, we do have a lot of programs that we can help out with. And one thing we can help out financially with is actually the one thing that I'm not in favor of, but I believe Ms. Morrison is stop giving tax breaks to the historical homeowners. The city's lost out in millions of dollars alone that could go to the schools, that could go to the city, but yet we have yet to get those that money because we're supposed to be giving tax breaks to people. I don't know why. Me in a good conscience, I cannot do that. And while schools are being closed, that's where money can go to that. Obviously, and another thing too, we live in a great city where it has 2 fine universities and another fine community college. We can program with UT, with St. Ed's, and with ACC to have a mentorship program. All types of programs we can have the city and all those other AIC schools to encourage more students to want to become more involved in higher learning education systems. So again, there's so much we can do with a minute and a half. Don't have enough time, and so this is definitely a situation that we need to look more into, and it's definitely a situation that we can solve.
In a time of declining revenues, what measures should the city take to maintain essential facilities and services? Mr. Rangel.
And that's really tough. These harsh economic times, nothing is off the board. Nothing is off as far as looking at budget. Again, we got to be fiscal responsible. Coming from a business background where you look at things, again, what's the bottom line? The sad truth is that we need to be fiscal responsible about where we're spending money and how we're doing it, and make sure that at the end of the day, what's most cost beneficial to the city and its citizens. So as far as facilities, again, how do we share facilities? Making sure that that we're using joint facilities. Make sure that we're partnering with other people as far as facilities, and that we're getting the best bang for our buck. I would have to look more into this to have a more clear and precise answer. But as far as I know, we can definitely do a whole lot, and definitely need to do a whole lot because, again, times aren't really getting easier. Times are getting tougher, and it's definitely a time that we make sure that we look at everything to save the tax dollars money.
Councilwoman Morrison.
Well, absolutely. The bottom line is the city needs to be there to provide public safety, water, electricity, and all of that. And we might have some hard choices in front of us. We need to look to the revenue side, that's for sure. One of the things that had been noted was that the city can do a better job coordinating with the appraisal district. When we get appraisals, we can, when we're doing real estate deals, we can pass them over to the appraisal district so they have some real-time appraisal values so that we can make sure that their buildings are adequately appraised, because there's been a problem with that. So that's one small way that we can help with the revenues. With regard to identifying priorities, that's always going to be something where we as a council need to dig deep into the budget, but also to listen carefully to the boards, to the public. And one of the things that I was able to bring forward into our budget process was to get the boards and commissions involved in the budget. So for instance, the Library Commission now works closely with the staff and gets briefings and hears public input and makes recommendations on the library budget. So that's a real grassroots, ground-up approach to being able to find out what our citizens' priorities are and where best to make cuts when needed.
Thank you.
Councilmember Morrison, what are your goals for promoting a greener and a more environmentally friendly Austin?
Well, there's a whole lot to the environment, right? There's solid waste, there's air, there's water, et cetera. One of the things maybe I'll chat about just briefly is that we've made great progress when it comes to zero waste, adopting a zero waste master plan, and really having an attitude that we are going to become a city that does not have waste. I was part of the Green Events resolution that kicked off our staff's work to work with all the events that we have in town to so that they can become ecologically, environmentally friendly. The other thing is that with regard to solid waste, to become a fully functioning and zero waste area, you need to have a big enough waste shed, as you will, that's enough waste to be able to feed industry that will recycle that waste and use it for products. And we are going to be to just in a couple of weeks, working with the county to enter into an interlocal agreement to talk about how we're going to work our solid waste issues together so that we really can grow into a regional approach to dealing with solid waste. So that's one example. We have a lot of great things going on in the city, and I think we've made some good progress.
Rangel?
Well, first, I think, being in favor of the urban rail, I think that's definitely a step we can take, especially long term. The more cars you get off the road, the more emissions will be in the air. The air quality will go up. Next thing I liked what City Council has been doing as far as the recycling, make sure it's local instead of sending it to San Antonio. That's definitely a next step. But we need to invest more in renewable energy. That's where we got to move forward with, because that is the future for Austin, and that's the future of making sure that our environment is, its carbon footprint is less. Making sure that the coal plant is being decreased, that we're not using that as a source of energy. That again, we need to invest in renewable energy, wind and solar, because step outside today, the wind's picking up. Coming here in July and June, it's hot outside. These are things that Texas can lead the nation in, especially Austin, when it comes to renewable energy.
How would you approach the problem of affordable rental properties in or near downtown Austin for employees of downtown businesses and government offices, Mr. Rangel?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. How would you approach the problem of affordable rental properties in or near downtown Austin for employees of downtown businesses and government offices?
Well, me being more of a business person, I think markets kind of dictate themselves. I think people set up a certain price at whether it's rent at an apartment. People aren't going to buy it; they're going to drop the rent. And again, it fluctuates. You make sure that you have regulations, but you let business take care of themselves. And I'm a big believer in that. You have some regulations, but at the end of the day, you just make sure that the market will take care of itself. And I believe that we need to have we do need to have some regulations on making sure that it is affordable and that it does not just skyrocket to $1.5 million like we're living in New York or anything like that. But again, we need to just make sure that they take care of themselves, and I think at the end of the day, they will.
Thank you. Councilwoman Morrison.
That's a huge issue, and that is how do we ensure workforce housing near downtown? Because obviously we have a lot of people in the service industry and office workers that are going to be coming downtown. And just as we were talking about with regard to traffic, one of the ways to solve it is so that people can live downtown. The other near their work. The other thing is, this downtown Austin is, as I recall. Mayor Watson used to call it the living room for the city. It belongs to everybody. It should not just be a place where only rich people can live. Okay, so how do we attack that problem? Well, we have several tools that we need to use strongly, and I'm a big supporter of using them strongly. I can't say that I've always been able to promote that position to a winning position on all the issues that I've raised. But for instance, when we are granting an increase in entitlements, i.e., someone can build more, where they want to build higher, bigger, more square feet on a piece of property, we have a right to look at what kind of community benefit that brings us. And we're working on what's called density bonuses that would say some strict guidelines that say if you're going to be able to get this density bonus, this additional square feet, the city will expect a certain investment in affordable housing, and hopefully on site, because we want people to be able to be here and not just have funds to buy property, affordable housing outside of the central Austin.
Thank you.
Councilmember Morrison, what can the city do to facilitate the employment of lower-skilled unemployed citizens?
Well, certainly we want to make sure. I mean, we have some huge challenges in the city, and the trends that we're moving in. I'm very concerned about the Community Action Network dashboard that just came out this week. Had some data that showed that while Travis County's population grew by 26%. From 2000 to 2009, the low-income population grew by 56%. Another thing is half the children in Austin are living in low-income households. That's not okay, and we need to make sure not only that folks that don't have skills at this point can find jobs. But I believe that we have an opportunity to invest in folks with skills training, helping them get started with small businesses, and a variety of different ways, because really the prosperity of an individual in this town relies on the prosperity of all of us. It depends on the prosperity of all of us. So I think it's a wise investment for the city to invest in skills training, to support the schools as much as we possibly can, because education is the key to making us a prosperous area.
Mr. Rangel.
Living on the east side, you definitely see, obviously, an increase in dropout rate. I think a lot of times because the kids over there believe that they don't have anything for them after high school. The city can partner with schools in the sense of making sure there's an apprentice program, whether it's vocational or technical schools with ACC and things like that, to promote jobs and skills, and then work with local businesses to hire these individuals. Because that's what we really need to do, and that's the backbone of the city, is local businesses. Not companies coming in like eBay had a presentation the other day. It's nothing like that. It's with local businesses to make sure, because those are individuals who will hire locally. When it comes to big companies, we're not sure. We think, but at the end of the day, we're not real sure. But again, you work with local businesses, you work with the schools, and you work with the kids in the same, build an apprenticeship program, build a job training program to say, hey, you may not have a career as a doctor, but you got a career as an electrician or a contractor, and these sort of things, and encourage them in a place that they think that they don't have a future in, but they will.
Waste management is an ever-increasing problem as our city grows. Landfills are reaching their limit. What is your long-term plan to manage our waste? Mr. Rangel.
Man, okay. It's inevitable. When the city grows, so does the waste. I mean, you look at your household. If it's just you, there's not much waste. If there's more people added, obviously there's more waste. So that's definitely a concern with when it comes to Austin. I think the fact that we're not going to San Antonio anymore, I think it's a huge step. City council's done a really good job with that, with making sure that local companies are handling the waste. Where are we going to put it? These sort of things, you let them dictate it. I think you are paying them to do their job. And again, the market will, again, like I said, dictate it. They're going to compete on how they handle it. They're going to compete on what they do with it. And again, at the end of the day, you can go with whomever, because the market's going to dictate on how waste is managed with the individuals, the local companies here. That's what I would do.
Councilwoman Morrison.
Well, I guess I touched on this a little bit preemptively before, but the bottom line is that with our zero waste plan and experience from other cities, we can actually, with our landfills, because we are, even though we are growing and we have more waste, because we can be so aggressive and effective at recycling, the capacity, how many years our landfill can serve us, can actually increase. And with a good zero waste plan and a good recycling plan in place. Part of the recycling plan includes having industry to use the recycled materials. That's why I was talking about previously, we need to have a regional approach to that, so that we have enough recycled materials to actually feed the businesses, and it becomes a green part of our green economy. So that's the long-term goal for where we're headed. We have a really terrific solid waste advisory committee at the city, as well as some very dedicated and capable staff and great community partners that are always there to push us farther on this. So I'm very encouraged about where we're headed in the world of solid waste.
Thank you.
Councilmember Morrison, NRG is asking Austin Energy for a commitment to purchase power from a proposed expansion of the South Texas nuclear project. Should Austin Energy purchase additional nuclear power? Why or why not?
Well, interestingly, of course, NRG has actually taken that off the table and said we're gonna have a postponement of this discussion right now. I am not supportive of the City of Austin going forward with a purchase power agreement. In general, I don't believe that base power is what we lack in the city, and the base power, as opposed to the peaking power, which can be fulfilled with renewable energy. Base power is not what we're looking for. In addition, for me, nuclear power is problematic because I am not comfortable with the reliability. We don't have a long-term solution for storing the waste from nuclear power. It's a huge water user, and the future of Texas likely is going to have a lot less water than we have now if we're talking 50, 60 years from there. And then, as I mentioned, I have a degree, a graduate certificate in public health with a focus in community preparedness and disaster management. And when I was studying that, I did study some specific cases about nuclear disasters, like we're looking at in Japan. And when you see the monumental effect that it can have on a community, it's just a no-go for me. I also want to add that the purchase power agreement, while it sounds risk-free, as I understand it, as I delved into it, it's not really risk-free because there's such a high risk of default in the world of building nukes.
Mr. Rangel?
This is actually really easy. No, for two reasons. One, financially. Again, like San Antonio was dealing with, the financial constraints of trying to get out of their nuclear deal. They're dealing with the pain of that. Number two, environmentally. It's just not environmentally sound, especially for a city who's trying to move to be green, who's trying to be environmentally safe. It just doesn't make sense. It's more hypocritical than anything, especially in these days when we got to be more fiscally responsible and more adhere to the environment. It just doesn't make sense in the long run.
The city of Austin has a tradition of supporting local businesses, but subsidizing large corporations. How would you equalize the subsidies given to large and small businesses, Mr. Rangel?
I work for a small business, and so I know the struggles that small businesses have. I have friends who have small businesses. So for me, I thought it was very bad business for the city to subsidize the domain, which they now regret doing. I think it was a bad business idea to subsidize the F1 track, which I know they're probably going to, that's a real big thing for the next 10 years as far as financially. Are we going to be tied to that? We need to look more locally. We need to focus more of our subsidies with local business to help them. Like I said earlier, they are the ones who hire locally. They are the ones who drive this economy. So for me, I would start there. Local businesses to help ensure that, again, we have more of a community. When you live here and you start building an idea, you start building a business in Austin, you have more ties to Austin. And not only that, you work with minority business owners so that they can get some help too. There's so much we can do with small business here in Austin. It's a great place, for entrepreneurship with UT and with St. Ed's and ACC. This is a great place for businesses to come, and I would definitely look more into small business subsidies than large companies.
Thank you. Councilwoman Morrison.
Well, local businesses obviously are part of what, an essential part of what makes Austin great, and the dollars that get traded in local businesses are much more valuable to us. They bring in more dollars than dollars that you spend at chain stores. So certainly everything that we can do to support local businesses is key. I was very much opposed to the domain deal, and since I've been on council, we've passed a resolution that we have a new policy that we will not do any incentive deals with projects like that, because basically it's just a matter of competing, using tax dollars to compete with our local businesses, which is just not right. There are several things that we've been able to do, I think, that, and I'm certainly looking forward to working more with local businesses. For instance, we now have a policy that when we're going after a procurement at the city, we have to be careful about how we do it and stay within state laws. But we are, in some cases, able to give local businesses a special preference in giving out contracts at the city. I've worked with small hotels. I've worked with daycares. I've hooked up our Visitors Bureau with the Austin Independent Business Alliance so that tourists can really access the locations and flavor of and information about our local businesses. So, and we have a terrific small business development group here at the city. So I think there are many, many things that we can do to help promote them.
Thank you.
Councilmember Morrison, how would you ensure that public testimony at council hearings is heard and considered in the decision-making process?
Well, there's a reason we call them public hearings, because we're supposed to be hearing and listening, and that's number one, and that, to get council members that will listen and actually be respectful of the folks that are down here and spending a lot of time. I think that we've made some progress in making the public hearing process a little bit easier recently with getting preliminary agendas out ahead of time, a week and a half ahead of time, almost 2 weeks ahead of time. The other thing I think that we need to keep in mind is that we have made some strict changes to our procedures for some things. For instance, when we are looking at the potential for an economic incentive to bring in a company like eBay, like we're looking at right now, we now have, and this was something that was very important to me when I got on council to put this into place, we now have a strict timeline that says all the information will be available to the public at this time, and we won't have a presentation or for a week for a week, so that people can understand it, and then we will have a public hearing, and then we will take the vote, so that there is no coming to the dais on that with your mind already made up and having to hear and hearing folks but not being able to take it into account. Another thing we've done is we've separated when there are big issues that we get briefings on at council meetings. We've now, in general, what we do is we get the briefing and we do not take action that day.
Rangel?
Well, this is a very simple answer in the sense of, you can set the agenda 2 weeks ahead of time, but when you don't stick with the agenda, that's where the problem lies. I think a lot of citizens feel detached because the agenda gets mixed up as the day goes by, and I think that's a huge problem. Citizens, they don't have a whole lot of time to come down here and waste their whole day thinking it's going to, the agenda is going to be at 8 or like at 10 in the morning, but it ends up being at 2. So we need to make sure that, again, it does happen at the time that we say it does, and we stick to the agenda and we stick to the time so that citizens can come down here. They know exactly what time it's going on and they know exactly what time to take off from work.
What are the economic advantages and or disadvantages to having the Formula One racing facility in our community? Mr. Rangel.
The economic advantages are you have tourists coming in, whether it's the ACL Fest or South by Southwest, you have other individuals coming in, bringing in money to the city of Austin. That's the advantages of it, whether it's the hotel tax, whether it's the commerce, them buying things, that's the economic advantages. The disadvantages of the sense of whether it's paying for the water pipeline that the citizens are paying for, or two, the infrastructure for it to go out there. And that's where, again, we're building too quick, too fast when it comes to the growth, when it comes to transportation. So what's the balance? And that's definitely something we need to look at. I think it was a bad idea. I didn't think it was the right timing for the F1 track. I think the F1 track is a good idea, but at the end of the day, I didn't think tax dollars money should be spent on subsidizing the water pipeline that it has been doing. So again, the economic advantages are the fact that individuals from outside of Austin come and spend money here, but the disadvantages are the fact that we got to now build an infrastructure to hold all the individuals who would come here throughout the year.
Councilwoman Morrison.
Well, certainly from a general perspective, that's where we are, and that is that we know that it would bring tourist dollars, and we know that it would cost us an infrastructure, not only an infrastructure, but serving all the folks that are here with more police and all of that. The bottom line is we don't have any details on that at this point, and we don't have any details at this point on environmental impacts and issues that a lot of folks have already raised. So the question is going to be put before the council, as I understand it, in the not too distant future. I first understood it to be the second half of 2011, as to whether or not we want to subsidize F1 with $4 million a year for 10 years, which would then enable $25 million a year for 10 years from the state. That's $300 million, $290 million of tax dollars going to F1, and I'm going to need to see some pretty strong numbers to understand why the city would need to invest those tax dollars. As I understand it, it's already coming in any case.
Councilmember Morrison, what solutions would you suggest for the problem of rising appraisals and taxes for homeowners, particularly inner city homes where people have lived in their house for decades and would like to stay there but can't because of the rising taxes?
Well, making sure everybody pays their fair share of taxes is obviously important as we, and one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that there is some lagging behind of some appraisal values, and I worked with another council member and we were able to get some coordination between the city, who has realistic appraisal information, to send that over to the appraisal district. So they'll be able to have adequate appraisals, which means more revenue coming in, which means less tax burden for everybody else. You know, we have some strict limits on what we can do. Everybody has to be under state statute. There's only certain ways that you're able to give exemptions. One of the opportunities that we have in front of us and haven't been able to take advantage of it yet is something that Representative Rodriguez put forward in the state at the state legislature called the Homestead Preservation District, which would allow in a certain area in East Austin all increased property tax revenue to be actually pushed back into that area to support affordable housing. So that's something that we have to join with the county on by the legislation, and the county hasn't been ready to go forward with that yet. So I'm hoping that that is one tool, one very important tool that we have, but we have to work closely with the county to get them to a place where they feel that that's the right thing to do.
Mr. Rangel?
Truth be told, is that I don't have enough information as far as to make a comment on that. So until I get more information, until I get more educated on the situation, I would like to reserve the right, I guess, just to say no comment. Thank you.
What do you see as the role of the city in supporting the arts, Mr. Rangel?
It's definitely got to be one of the top priorities. Everybody needs an outlet, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, whether it's music. We need an outlet. We need to encourage kids to have more outlets. When I went to the forum at the Paramount, it was very engaging in the sense of realizing that how important the arts are. I always thought it was important, but then going there and talking to people, it was more of an enlightenment in the sense of saying that we do need to support the arts much more, because we do need an outlet for children, we do need outlets for and adults to make sure that we do encourage creativity in the school. So it is a top priority for the city, and I definitely think with events like South by Southwest and ACL Fest that do bring people from out of town, making sure that the hotel tax is definitely the money that from that does go directly to the arts, that it's not allocated to other places, that's not allocated to things that it shouldn't go, that it's allocated to the place where it does need to go, and that's definitely where it should go.
Councilwoman Morrison.
I've been a huge supporter of the arts while I've been on council, and it's been a delight and an honor to be able to work with folks in the artistic and creative community. I was the one that we have something called the Create Austin Master Plan, which is a community plan. The city was part of it, that really has a vision for how we can really promote our creative industries and artists in the city. And I was able to bring that to council and get it endorsed by the city council. So I think that's very important. We have financial means also to support the arts in the city, from the hotel occupancy tax, as well as our Art in Public Places program, where some funds from some developments are especially dedicated to arts, and we have some millions of dollars to support artistic communities. We can also do things like remove barriers for artists that are doing projects that involve the city, and I was able to promote a resolution that actually was able to do that and waive some fees for folks that are doing some art projects. And the other thing that we can do to promote the arts, and I think as much as possible, and as a responsibility in any way we can, is to promote our artists and our musicians, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to working on if I am honored to get another term, a new program we're talking about called a Creative Ambassadors Program, so that, for instance, musicians from Austin that are traveling internationally can be formally identified as city ambassadors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our question and answer period. We'll start now with the closing comments, beginning with Mr. Rangel.
Okay, cool. Again, thank you for sticking around. I know it's getting late in the night for all of us, so again, thank you for having us here. My vision for Austin isn't complex. It's very simple. All you need is common sense. The way I see the future for Austin is the way newlyweds see their first home. They don't buy their first home with just them in mind. They buy it with the people who are going to be living in it, 10 and 20 years from now. And that's the way we need to view Austin. We need to stop thinking of Austin as 800,000 and start thinking of Austin as 1,000,005. Because the truth is growth is coming, and we got to be ahead of that growth. And I know with laying down a mass transit system that we can grow from, increasing urban development while decreasing suburban sprawl, and then working with local businesses, we can ensure economic growth and stability for Austin for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Morrison.
Thank you. It was 1981 that my husband and I moved here with our 2 young sons when he joined the physics faculty at the University of Texas. It was a great place to raise our kids, and it's 30 years later, it's still a place that we love. It was really when I was president of the Austin Neighborhoods Council, before I was on the city council, that I came to, first of all, learn about neighborhoods all across the city and get connected with folks all across the city, and appreciate that neighborhoods are the connection between neighborhoods, which are the building blocks of our community, the connections between neighborhoods and affordable housing, social services, the environment, local businesses, public safety, all of those essential critical elements of our city. And we have challenges that we will be looking at in the next 3 years. There's no doubt about that. And we will be laying the groundwork for our future with the comprehensive plan. I believe that my record on council shows that I am committed to the community voice and encouraging it and incorporating it at City Hall. And it would be a privilege to be able to continue another 3 years to be the public voice at City Hall. So I respectfully ask for your vote, and thank you all for listening, and thank you to the League and the Ethics Commission for hosting this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your participation as candidates for Place 4 of the City Council. And we thank the Ethics Review Commission for sponsoring this forum. The Austin League of Women Voters Nonpartisan Voters Guide will be published in the Austin American-Statesman on Sunday, May the 1st, the day before early voting begins, and will be available on our website at www.lwvaustin.org, as well as the Statesman website and the city's website. It will also be available in the public libraries. It's getting late, isn't it? One last reminder from the League of Women Voters. This Thursday is the last day to register to vote for this election. Early voting begins on Monday, May the 2nd, and ends on Tuesday, May the 10th. And the election is Saturday, May the 14th. Be sure to vote and bring a friend. Thank you so much.